When softness becomes your superpower. Lessons from a single mother who chose rest over rescue. I want to tell you about someone who's quietly dismantling the myth that strength means suffering. Her name is Mikeya Kirksey, and she's doing something radical in a world that glorifies the grind. She's teaching single mothers, particularly Black women who've spent decades carrying everyone but themselves, that choosing rest isn't rebellion, it's reverence. She's building legacies not through hustle, but through healing, not through sacrifice, but through softness. And what she shared with me didn't just shift my perspective, it shattered it. Let me start with a confession. I used to think softness was something you earned after the battle was won, after the kids were grown, after the bills were paid, after you'd proven yourself worthy of rest. I thought it was a reward for endurance, a prize for making it through. I was wrong. Softness isn't the reward, it's the revolution. And nobody tells you this when you're young. Nobody warns you that the cape you're so proud of wearing, the one that makes you feel invincible, indispensable, essential, will one day become the thing that's slowly suffocating you. Nobody mentions that the armor you built to protect yourself from a world that undervalues you will eventually become the prison that keeps you from actually living. If you're a Black woman, especially a single mother, that cape isn't optional. It's inherited, it's expected, it's practically woven into your identity before you even understand what identity means. You learn early that your value is measured by how much you can carry, how much you can endure, how much you can give without breaking. And the moment you do break, you're told to do it quietly, to pull yourself together, to keep moving. But here's what Micaiah helped me understand during our conversation. And here's what I need you to hear today. The goalpost will always move. There will always be another crisis, another bill, another person who needs you, another role you're expected to fill without question, without compensation, without so much as a thank you. And if you're waiting for permission to rest, to choose yourself, to say no without drowning in guilt, you'll be waiting forever. So let's talk about what it actually looks like to drop the cape, to step into what I'm calling the soft girl era. Not as a trend you scroll past on social media, but as a lifestyle rebellion, a sacred pause, a deep, soul shaking exhale from a script that's been choking the life out of you. First, let's address the elephant in the room because I know what some of you are thinking. When I say soft, I don't mean weak, I don't mean passive. I don't mean you stop showing up or stop caring or stop fighting for what matters. I mean, you stop fighting yourself. I mean, you stop treating your body like a machine that should run on fumes, coffee, and sheer willpower. I mean, you stop apologizing for having needs. I mean, you start recognizing that boundaries aren't walls that keep people out, they're bridges to the life you actually want to live. Micaiah shared something with me that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She said that for years she believed self care was selfish, that taking time for herself meant she was failing her children, that rest was something she'd earn someday when everything was perfect, when she'd finally done enough. But that day never came because the work is never finished. The to do list never ends. And the version of you that's waiting on the other side of exhaustion, she doesn't exist. What exists is a woman who's forgotten what joy feels like, a woman who's so busy surviving that she's forgotten how to live. And here's the part that breaks my heart, she's not alone. There are millions of women right now reading this, nodding their heads, feeling seen for the first time in years. Women who are so tired they can't remember the last time they laughed without it being followed by guilt. Women who are so stretched they've forgotten what it feels like to just be without performing, without producing, without proving. Micaiah had to relearn what self care even meant. Because somewhere along the way, self care got hijacked by capitalism and turned into bubble baths and face masks and expensive candles. And listen, I love a good candle, but self care isn't just about pampering yourself on Sunday, it's about protecting yourself on Monday. It's about saying no to the things that drain you so you can say yes to the things that sustain you. It's about recognizing that your well being isn't a luxury, it's a responsibility, not just to yourself, but to your children, your community, your purpose, your God. Because here's what Mikeya understands that so many of us are just learning. You can't build a legacy from a place of depletion. You can't model healthy boundaries if you don't have any. You can't teach your children to value themselves if you don't value yourself. And that's the part that gets me. That's the part that makes me want to grab every exhausted, overextended, cape wearing woman and say, you are not a superhero. You're a human being. And that's enough. That's more than enough. During our conversation, Mikeya started viewing self care as stewardship, not indulgence, not selfishness, stewardship, taking care of the vessel she was given so she could fulfill the purpose she was called to. And that reframe, that changes everything. Because when you see rest as stewardship, you stop feeling guilty about it. When you see boundaries as protection, you stop apologizing for them. When you see softness as strength, you stop hiding it. Let's talk about boundaries for a second. I know they're hard, especially when you've been conditioned to believe that your value comes from how much you give, how much you do, how much you sacrifice without complaint. But here's the truth: a boundary is not a rejection, it's a redirection. It's not saying I don't care about you, it's saying I also care about me. And if that makes someone uncomfortable, that's information. That's data. That tells you they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. And that's not love, that's exploitation. Mikeya talked about learning to advocate for herself in systems that weren't designed with her in mind, systems that expected her to be grateful for scraps, systems that punished her for asking for what she deserved, systems that told her she was too much and not enough all at once. And she had to learn, sometimes the hard way, that advocating for yourself isn't aggressive, it's necessary. That asking for what you need isn't demanding, it's honest. That walking away from what doesn't serve you isn't quitting, it's choosing yourself. And here's where it gets really good, because when you start choosing yourself, when you start setting boundaries, when you start resting without guilt, everything shifts. Your energy shifts, your relationships shift, your career shifts, your entire life starts to reorganize itself around your peace instead of your pain. Mikeya shared how stepping into this softer, more intentional version of herself didn't make her less productive. It made her more purposeful. It didn't make her less ambitious. It made her more aligned. It didn't make her less capable. It made her more clear. Because when you're not running on fumes, when you're not operating from survival mode, when you're not carrying everyone else's expectations on your back, you can actually see where you're going. You can actually hear what you need. You can actually build something sustainable. And that's the legacy part. That's the part that makes me emotional every single time I think about it, because Mikeya isn't just changing her own life, she's changing the trajectory for her children. She's modeling what it looks like to choose yourself without apology. She's showing them that rest is productive, that boundaries are healthy, that softness is powerful, that you don't have to break yourself to be worthy of love. She's breaking generational cycles of overextension and undernourishment. She's creating a new blueprint, one where strength doesn't mean suffering, one where success doesn't require sacrifice, one where you can be soft and still be safe. And that's revolutionary. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this. What would your life look like if you gave yourself permission to be soft? if you stopped wearing the cape, if you started treating march to rest as a responsibility instead of a reward you have to earn? What would shift if you started advocating for yourself the way you advocate for everyone else? If you started protecting your peace the way you protect everyone else's comfort? If you started building a life instead of just surviving one? I'll tell you what would shift everything. Your relationships would get healthier because you'd stop accepting crumbs and calling it a meal. Your career would get better because you'd stop settling for less than you deserve. Your children would grow up knowing they don't have to earn love by being useful. They can just be, they can just exist. And that's enough. And you? You'd finally get to exhale. You'd finally get to rest. You'd finally get to experience joy, not as a fleeting moment between crises, but as a daily practice, a chosen state, a way of life. Mikeya reminded me that faith isn't just about enduring, it's about thriving. It's not just about surviving the storm, it's about learning to dance in the rain. And sometimes it's about having the wisdom to come in out of the rain all together, to say, I've had enough. I'm going inside. I'm resting now. Because God didn't call you to burn out, He called you to shine. And you can't shine if you're running on empty. You can't pour light into the world if your own flame has gone out. So here's what I need you to hear today. Here's what I learned from Mikeya Kirksey, a woman who's turning survival into something sacred, who's building financial freedom and emotional wholeness, who's creating a legacy not just of success, but of softness. You are not required to carry what you didn't pack. You are not required to fix what you didn't break. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to choose yourself without explanation, without guilt, without apology. You are allowed to be soft in a world that taught you survival. And when you do, when you finally drop that cape and step into your soft girl era, you won't just change your life, you'll change your lineage. You'll change what's possible for every woman watching you. You'll change the world, not by doing more, but by finally being enough, just as you are right now, in this moment, soft, rested, boundaried, and free. So here's my challenge to you. And I mean this with everything in me. I want you to do one thing this week that honors your softness. One boundary, one moment of rest, one time you say no without apologizing. One time you choose yourself without explaining why. Just one. And then notice what happens. Notice how your body responds. Notice how your energy shifts. Notice who celebrates you and who punishes you for it. Because that's the beginning. That's the first step toward a life where you're not just surviving, you're thriving, you're soft, you're free. And the world is waiting for that version of you, the one who's rested, the one who's whole, the one who's finally come home to herself. That's the revolution. That's the legacy. That's the life that's waiting for you on the other side of the cape. So take a breath, let it go, and step into the softness you've been denying yourself, because you are worth it. You always have been.